Welcome back to Creating Cooperative Kids. I'm your host, Bill Corbett. One of the most controversial topics with parents today is co-sleeping. Should I let my child sleep with me? And if so, at what point do I put the child in her own bed? With me in the studio today to help me address this and other issues is Dr. Susan Markel, a board-certified pediatrician and author of the book, What Your Pediatrician Doesn't Know Can Hurt Your Child. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Markel. All right, so co-sleeping. Bed sharing, two topics that are really kind of fostered by Attachment Parenting International, one of the most awesome organizations that I love because attachment is so important. So before we get into the whole bed sharing thing, because I know people in the audience are going to have questions about that. First, let's talk about the organization behind it, Attachment Parenting International. Now, bed sharing has been around for ages and ages and ages. People in all kinds of countries have done that, but attachment parenting has really been responsible for pushing the issue in this country because there's a big benefit to it. But Attachment Parenting International is an organization that has really supported the bond to happen in the first 12 to 18 months between the child and the parent. And it was co-founded in 1994 by Barbara Nicholson and Lisa Parker, and their whole initiative was to promote parenting practices that create strong, healthy emotional bonds between the child and the parent. Yeah. And when the bond and the attachment occurs in the first 12 to 18 months, that changes everything for the child when they become an adult, as they grow, because what I've found is the child is more secure. Right? The child is more secure, more stable, and can move on. Now, you work with Attachment Parenting International.
Yes, I agree with everything that you said, obviously, and that one of the quotes in my book, and it might be the beginning of the chapter about co-sleeping, or maybe in the chapter about carrying your baby, but the quote says that children are born with the need to be loved and never outgrow it. And if we can understand that the best thing we can do for our babies, our children, but starting in infancy, is to give unconditional love, to give them security, to make them feel safe, to make them feel that their needs are being met, then they will grow up to be functional rather than dysfunctional adults. And in fact, the basis of attachment parenting is that dysfunctional adulthood has its roots in a dysfunctional childhood, and that we can actually create a better world for the next generation, a world without violence and without crime, if in fact children have a good basis, a good childhood filled with love and self-esteem.
And that brings up a good point, because like you said, if the attachment occurs, if the baby bonds physically with the mother as well as emotionally, then I think it almost, to me, it like completes one big piece of the puzzle. And as you said, when the child grows, that piece isn't missing. It's not empty, it's not broken, it's complete, and it actually helps the child go on and develop as an individual.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the bed sharing for a minute.
Well, again, as you said, in 90% of the world, even today, children sleep with their parents. That is the normal, the natural way, because babies are born helpless. Babies unlike other mammals, babies cannot fend for themselves at all. When a horse is born, I believe after a few hours, the horse can get up and walk away and get its own food and mobility. Babies have, as Ashley Montague, a wonderful anthropologist said, you have a human baby has 9 months in the uterus and another 9 months out of the uterus, where the baby needs to be totally taken care of. They can't do anything for themselves. They have to be taken care of 100%. So babies need that security, and in our society, we have a reverence for independence. We feel like, well, your baby will never be independent unless you put the baby over there in a crib in another room. But why? A baby doesn't, there's no reason for babies to be independent. Babies will become independent when they're ready, and they'll be ready when we give them that basis of love and attachment and self-esteem to begin with, and then they can flourish outside of that realm when they're older.
So let me ask you a question. As I told you before, parents come to me as a parent educator. How do I fix this? What do I do about that? My child's doing this. So when I get a parent coming to me in the first 12 to 18 months, telling me about a problem and what is the right discipline to use, and I want you to comment on this, I tell them there's no discipline. There's no real need for discipline during that time frame. What's your take on that?
Okay, the word discipulus means learner. And so when we talk about discipline, we're talking about the child learning how to behave. The word discipline has nothing to do with the word punishment. It's not related. There's no punishment in discipline. Discipline is teaching your child how to behave in all sorts of situations so that your child can then go out in the world and be a successful person, a successful individual in society. And actually, discipline is a very difficult job of the parent, but it's actually the most important job to teach our children. We don't need to teach our children to be happy. We need to teach our children how to behave in ways that will then foster their own happiness. Now, the way that we teach children is very simple. We react in a positive way. We praise them. How do children learn to talk? Not by being punished, by saying the wrong word. When children say a word, the parents are very happy. They call the grandmother. They clap. They can't believe that baby said tooth, the baby said moon, the baby said mama. And the baby sees this wonderful gratification, and the baby will repeat it. So positive interaction is the way that we teach children how to, even at a very young age, they can tell, not necessarily by our words because they don't understand words, but by our tone of voice, by the nuance of our body language, children learn how to behave and what's the good behavior and what's not.
So let's talk about one of the big problem parents have during the first 18 months is tantrums.
Right.
So what's your take on tantrums? Or how to handle them?
Tantrums are a normal part of behavior because children at that age, they're not capable. They're not capable of doing what they want to do. They're maybe not capable of expressing what they want. They might not be capable of understanding what the parent is trying to tell them. And so they just get all excited about it. Frustrated, exactly.
Yeah.
They get very frustrated. And if the child is frustrated, the parent can be totally, it can be a horrible experience for a parent to have a child if it's in a public place. It's excruciating for a parent to see their child and not know how to handle it. But I say in the book there are 3 things that you should do when your child is having a tantrum. You should either ignore your child, distract your child, or hug your child. Never punish your child for having a tantrum because it's normal.
Yeah, absolutely, and I always tell parents a lot of times you can even put a tantrum in one of 2 buckets. It's either just frustration because they're small, they're little, and the other is some tantrums are invoked biologically, like if the child's overtired or hungry.
Definitely.
And I tell them, you know what? There's no discipline for anything like that.
Right.
If you can tell that the tantrum is caused by a biological factor, you got to take care of the factor.
Exactly.
You got to put him to sleep. You got to give him some food, whatever. But the frustration ones, you're absolutely right. Just let go of it. You know, either pull them close to you, or ignore them, step over them, and let them throw their fit. Because if you respond to it, it teaches them to do it again, over and over, or distract them, redirect them.
Yeah.
You know, oftentimes, you know, you get a child doing something, and you say, "Oh, look at the butterfly out the window." Before you know it, they're like, "Where? Where?"
Yeah.
And then you can get them to go look at the butterfly and take them off that whole thing. So, good points, very good points. Attachment parenting is very important. I think it really leads to a whole person down the road, and there's so many things that we can do in line with what Attachment Parenting International teaches, and your book is laced with all those things, so excellent. I really appreciate you coming out and being on the show today.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
So now that we've helped you better understand your child in the first 18 months, what about the last 5 of the child's first 18 years? Coming up in my next segment, we're going to meet another kind of doctor who is going to help us understand why teens act the way they do. If you're a parent of a teenager, you're not going to want to miss this next segment. We'll be right back.